Now I'm going to show you how to hide, or otherwise known as disable, a drive, a SATA drive, or actually a SATA port, so that the Linux OS will not do anything with it. It will not mount it. You will not be able to see it in the file system or with any other tools other than with direct HDDSI mode. So the first thing we're going to do is, because we always have to have a project file, we're just going to create one called dummy, because we're going to delete it later because we don't need it. We need to go for the mode, choose direct HDDSI. Now, right now I'm going to choose source drive, so it lists everything connected. Right now you see I have 2 disks that are actually part of the computer that I don't want to mess with, and there's no other drives here. I do not have a drive plugged into the port that I wish to disable yet. I just wanted to demonstrate that, so you see that there's nothing here. This is the best way to tell which port you're working with, other than using the model and serial number of the drive. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug in a good known working drive to one of the ports. So now that I have a drive plugged in and powered up, let's see what happens when we choose source drive. Now we can see it here, right? This is the port that I plug this drive into, and this is the port that I'm going to designate as the one that I want hidden from the operating system. It's ATA 10.00. Right now you can see it has SDG, that is the device name in Linux, so it is visible to Linux. If I wanted to choose this, it would give me the warning that says I cannot, because it's available to the OS and bad things happen if you try to do that. So we know that it's ATA 10.0. So now, and this is only with an actual installation, a Linux installation. If you want to do the live CD, that's going to be something different that I'll show later. So we're going to go to drives, disable ports. And I know there's port number 10, so I'm just going to type in the number 10. If you wanted to do multiple ports, let's say I wanted to do 9 and 10, you would do them in order, a simple comma separation, 9, comma 10. Am I correct on that? Oh, by spaces according to my notes up here. So you'd go 9, space 10. You want them in order. Always in order. If you don't put them in order, weird things will happen. Some ports will get disabled and some ports. So anyway, I just want 10, so I'm going to leave that at number 10. Update ports. Hey, nothing happened. Oh, now it's happening. So now that it's completed, you saw the message that said I have to reboot. Well, I'm going to have to reboot for it to take effect, because if I still list my source drive, it's still showing that it is mounted. And even if I were to unplug it and plug it back in, this doesn't take effect until after you reboot. So I'm going to reboot. Alright, so now I've rebooted. I'm going to have to go through and do a new project again. I'm just going to pick the same one and overwrite it. Direct HDDSI mode. If we go into disable ports, you should see that it says 10:disable. So the setting looks like it stuck. So now I've plugged the drive into the same port. Now if I choose source, you see there is no longer a designation for Linux for the drive anymore. Therefore, Linux does not see this drive, but HDDSuperClone still can through the direct HDDSI mode. Now this drive can be selected, and HDDSuperClone can work with it with all the advanced features and timeouts. Now, if I wanted to re-enable a port or ports, I would go back to disable ports, leave this blank, and it will it'll clear everything out. Whatever you put here, whatever port you put here is what ports will be disabled. It will clear out anything else. So now if I say update ports, now you can see down here, it says libHA force equals, and there's nothing after it, so there's no ports. If I were to click OK, it would clear it out, and I'd have to reboot again for it to take effect. I'm just going to click cancel on that. In the event that something horrific happens where it gets screwed up and you can't get it back, it's like the ports, too many ports are being disabled, or the command line for that somehow got screwed up, you can restore the original startup port configuration. This is created the first time that you go through the disable ports process. It makes an original backup of everything, and you can restore the original backup. Obviously, it's going to give you the same thing. You're about to make a change. The startup configuration, a reboot will be required. The only thing about that is, if it's been a long time since you disabled the ports originally, and then you've done Linux upgrades, upgraded your OS, it's possible that restoring the original might restore something prior to an upgrade, so it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I don't think it'd be an issue, but you never know. That's just something to consider if you're doing the restore, but it's there if you need it. And if you need to know what the commands are and what they are doing, look that up in the user manual. To disable a port using the live CD takes a little bit more work. The first thing you have to do is boot into the live CD, open HDDSuperClone, install your license, since you'll need to get to direct HCI mode, which is a pro version. If you don't know how to do that, load your activation file, choose a project, which I already did, change the mode to direct HCI, and then go to drives, choose your source drive, and look at this list, and if you're following the basic same instructions as before, where you're figuring out which port it is that you want to disable. So you plug a good drive in, and then you figure out where it's at, figure out the number of it. Is it 7, 8, 9, 10? And then you want to disable it. So let's say I wanted to disable port 6 for this case, so we're going to cancel this. Now these are just screenshots because obviously I can't do an easy video on a computer while booting from it. So this will be the first screen you come up to on if you're using an Ubuntu version like the HD Live CD is based on. It's counting down here from 30 seconds. You choose your language and you hit enter. At that point in time, you'll end up at the next screen where you can see it's highlighted, try Ubuntu without installing. You want to make sure that stays highlighted, that you don't drop down to one of these other ones. Especially you don't want it to drop down to install it if you don't want to install it. Now, at this point, you want to hit F6. F6 will bring you to the next screen. It will have this pop-up here. You want to get that pop-up out of the way because you don't want to change anything here. So you want to hit escape. Now when you hit escape, it gets rid of the pop-up, and you can see you've got a boot options line down here. You want to get to the end of the line, so you would hit the right arrow key at that point in time, and you'll see you get a little cursor over here now. Now you want to type out the command that you want to add to that line for the boot, and remember, this is because it's live CD, this is only temporary. You have to do it every time you boot from the live CD if you want to disable the drive or disable the port. So this is what I've typed in is libata.force equals 6. I just chose port 6 for this case. I'm not actually going to boot, didn't actually boot into it. You don't need the .00s. You can put them in if you want, but I found it's better to just leave them off. You don't need the portion after the dot. So you just type in libata.force equals 6 colon disable. At this point in time, make sure you're still on the line, that this is highlighted, the try Ubuntu without installing, and you would hit enter. And it'll hang here for a little bit while it's patiently loading from the CD/DVD drive. You'll hear that start to whine and move. Eventually the screen will go out, and you will be blessed with booting into the OS with that port disabled, so you will be able to directly work with a drive in direct HCI mode. I would just like to add that if you're not using Ubuntu, you will have to look up how to get to this line to get to the boot options to be able to add that. There may be some distributions of live CDs that you are unable to get to that line. There might be some that it's more difficult. I'm only showing the easiest way to do it is with Ubuntu, because Ubuntu always brings up this option line at the bottom. Other distributions do not, and you have to work at it. You'd have to look it up on your own to figure out how to do it for your Linux distribution.